What you sipping on, Mobs?
What's going on, South Africa? What's happening, world, Milky Way, planet Earth, the universe? I'm your host, The Wise. We're here again for another installment of Out of Space. Welcome to episode 2. Today, we've got a very special guest with us. I would say she's one of my confidants. One of the people on planet Earth that I find really intriguing, and the depth to this person, you know, it goes beyond bounds. You know what I mean? So I would like to introduce to y'all this week's guest. That's Nikita Arens. What's going
Yo, thanks.
on?
Yo, how you doing, brother?
Nah, I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Yourself?
Jeez, man, thanks for the amazing intro. Talk about an ego boost.
Come on. Yeah, man, I just gotta speak the truth. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta tell it what it is. And that's what the show is about. The show is really about creating a space where we can just come to have the chats, the right chats, about real things. And I kind of want to have people on this show who I feel like can add value in that aspect, as well as people whom I actually maybe don't necessarily know yet. So later on, we'll get some people who I'm meeting for the first time really properly on the show. But for now, we keeping it home, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
What's happening in Josie?
Dude, besides the extreme cold, yo, man, it's chill. It's a very interesting time to be alive in this particular South Africa that we're living in.
Mhm.
In the world that we're living in, there's a lot going on right now. But yeah, man, how's things that side in the PTA?
Ah, no, it's all good this side, man. Like, I'm not gonna. My girlfriend actually said to me, like, I'm probably one of the most paranoid dudes when it comes to this whole Corona thing. So I'm keeping it tidy. Like, I'm staying indoors as much as I can. The only time I've ever left, the times I've ever left the house, is when I've needed to leave the house, or unless it was for love. Other than that, which is still a need. And by love, I mean just like doing like necessary shopping. When I would need things, I'll go
Oh,
to the
okay.
same shops as her you know. But
All
other
right. I
than
thought you were
that,
risking
risking
it.
it for the biscuit when our lives are on the line. Then my favorite phrase that I'm quoting, that I'm saying nowadays is, "Yo, man, we out here. I ain't shaving my head. I ain't shaving this beard because we fighting an enemy we can't even see." Oh hell
you know,
no.
that's real life. I had an afro for the better part of this lockdown, so I feel you. I feel you. I just tucked it away. Gotta look decent. Gotta
Yeah.
look decent for
I
the
actually combed
streets,
my
bro.
hair because I knew we were doing this. I combed my hair for the first time in like 2, 3 days. Because you must remember, before lockdown, right? I was consistent with the brush cut, with the close shave, with the close
Yeah, yeah,
bald brush cut. So this is the first time. This period is the first time since 2014, easily. Maybe 15, like
yeah.
early 15, but 2014 when I last had to actually comb my hair. I just been using the brush, man. Like it's tough, dog. Hey, I'm using two levels of Afro combs. The first one is long, just to kind of get a little bit ready, and the other one is for the refinement.
Listen, it is what it is, dog. The shaping and the placing. Now, so I've been rocking that afro, bro. It's a mess out here. You know, you just need to I need to pack it away. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But
The maintenance is crazy.
what are you sipping on over there? I see you sipping on some stuff there.
Yeah. No, man. Just having a little Savannah. You know,
That's
just to
right.
lighten up the mood. Yeah. Something soft for Thursday night, man.
You know what it is.
And you?
Booze on Thursday. I'm busy mixing
Drink?
myself a drink here. Probably can't see it too clearly, but it's that Malfi. It's a Malfi
Mm-hmm.
original. This one's actually one of my favorite original gins, like the non-flavored ones as well.
Yeah.
It's smooth.
But I know some of those gins you drink though. Woo.
Oh wait, I got like I got some thyme up in here, some grapefruit,
Hey.
some raspberry, and today I'm
Mm-hmm.
using one of my favorite tonics. It's the Fever Tree tonic. I'm using the
Mm-hmm.
aromatic one. I actually wish that I had the Mediterranean one. That one slaps. But I said, man,
Yeah.
if I want to be having a real chats with people, I gotta be having some real drinks. You know,
I appreciate.
I'm a tea man. I love my teas. But right now,
Yeah.
like I need something a little bit harder. We've been surviving a war where no one's even fighting. So
We're fighting silently, bro. We're fighting invisible things, bro.
exactly. Salute to you.
Salute. Salute.
That's right. That's right. Hmm. So what's been on your mind? You and I haven't. I mean, we've chatted actually. Quite a bit, maybe recently, but we actually
Yeah.
haven't really like caught up. What's been happening in life that you can share, or what's been on your mind. There's a lot of topical matters that are floating around currently.
Yeah. Yo, man, like I think there's just a lot happening right now, from whether it is what's happening in the States or even in South Africa, bro. But I think for me what's been top front and center in my mind is like the femicide in our country. Like to be a woman in our country, like yo, we endangered species. I think that's been like front and center in my mind. I had a bit of a situation today at home and stuff. And I was just like, God damn, guys. So this thing, like, yo, it's almost like
It's real.
we live in like literally the pits of hell. Where you just pray and you survive day to day as a woman, man. Like, it's wild, bro. But that for me,
Yeah.
right there.
You know what's crazy? And I like to be vulnerable with you. What's
Yeah.
crazy for me is, I was raised by a woman and a pro woman environment. But I was still surrounded, and there's still the seed of patriarchy in me. And all of that. So for me, what's killing me, is that these things have been going on for a long ass time. I'm not too sure about the rate, but it's been happening regardless. Doesn't matter if it's once or 100 times. It's been happening, and it only really hit me in terms of the reality of this happening, like a woman being killed by us brothers here. It hit me like in the past week or two, because now I'm starting to see a lot more, and I mean it's a little bit too late, but I mean it's the same thing that kind of happened when I started to pay attention a bit more to what happens to my partner, to my girlfriend in public and stuff, because more often than not, I'd be with her and protect her, not protect her, but I'll always have that protective aura on me, because she don't need no protecting. People who know her know she don't need no man to protect her. Best believe that. But yeah, she got that fire. But it's not about that. It's the fact that she needs to protect herself. So a lot of these things are becoming new to me, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm entering into a space where I'm becoming a bit more conscious. But man, they be killing our sisters,
Dude.
and we enabling it.
You know what's really, I think for me, it's we've almost become so desensitized to the reality of what this means for us as as first of all Black individuals, and second of all as as human beings, man. It's almost as if this has gone beyond being accountable for your actions.
Mm.
This is sort of grown into, you know, almost a war, you know. uh, you literally, it's almost like fighting grown. You don't know who you're fighting when.
Mm.
When we talk about patriarchy and masculinity, um man, and now we've had many conversations about this,
Mm.
and our own takes in this thing. But like, man, like I've seen it now, twice in the space of 2 weeks, where like it happened front and center in my life. And sometimes when you're sitting in the situation, it's almost like you are in the twilight zone. you
Word.
know the
Word.
kind of wild violence. It's not necessarily, and look, by no means I'm making physical violence any less, but the violence, the emotional and mental violence that takes place when this thing plays out, it's bruh, that's some soul crushing shit. That's the kind of shit that's
That's
like
the right word.
real, that disturbing, keep you up at night shit.
Mm.
And like the other day, I just was like, yo, bruh, I give up. Like, how is this even happening right now?
Mm.
Like, but you were talking about protecting your lady, dude. It is our responsibility to continuously be learning and unlearning. There'll be times where you need to protect. There'll be times you need to speak up when it's not necessarily comfortable,
Yeah.
and when it's not going to always make you, give your ego a boost or you a social standing. Where really it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, but it has to happen. Because unknowingly, even though you're not fighting or protecting your sisters, your girlfriend, your mom, with you unknowingly could be feeding into something that could put them in danger in the
100%.
long run. And that goes back to, look, I'm a masculine presenting queer woman. I know, some of the conversations, guys have, and even, queer masculine women. I know what happens in the circles, what we talk about and how things unfold. It's very easy for these things to slip.
Yeah.
And then when you're in there, you're like, I don't want to take my guy on, or I don't want to take my friend on. But that's the thing, is that we've become so inconsistent in how we really like tackle this issue,
Mm.
that within our own circles, that it's easy for it to grow into mess.
Mm. That's crazy. So one of my friends challenged me. I think I spoke to you about it actually. Obviously
Yeah.
there's context around the whole thing. But I think what it made me realize as well is when I was in an environment where an incident happened around homophobia, in my group of friends. It also made me realize that, I felt a little bit useless, and I felt like, there was a bit more that I could have done, but not necessarily in that moment. In that moment in particular, I'm not trying to move between female genocide and homophobia, but just linking to the things that happened within the in the male circle. But it made me realize that, man, there's something that I should have been doing prior to that moment even happening, because it's kind of like, and there is a science term around all of this, but everything that happens is it's a sequence of events that leads to a moment to occur. Everything doesn't just
Yeah.
happen by surprise. So I could say many a times when I was less aware um, about the impact of the things that we do and say as men. And I find myself in a situation where, like, sometimes how genuine are the friendships that we have as men with each other,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times it can be not fickle but very surface level and convenient. It's kind of like we fill a space in each other's lives, but when it's time to talk about the real things, it's kind of like, your people gonna handle that. Maybe your girlfriend or your family, or the people in your realist spaces will handle that. And that's what made me kind of think about, and I'm still pondering about it, about how do I alleviate the cowardice. And maybe cowardice is the wrong word, but I'll say cowardice. How do you alleviate that cowardice, and how do we inspire men who, because I think it's difficult to really inspire men who are already abusing, who are doing the deeds. it's difficult to kind of change what's happening there. But how do we inspire the enablers to speak up, to talk up? Because the reality is that if we are homies, if you and I are homies, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about some real things, and things are not so fun, but we're talking about the real things. We should be able to collide. We should be able to disagree. We should be able to talk about
Yeah.
things and still get back to that space of being in the cool space. You know what I mean? And that's how we should really be building the relationships and friendships that we have around us. And I don't feel like we don't. I don't feel like men in general don't do that enough. You know, and we see it. Like like you said, you're a you're a queer woman in the male space, in the masculine space, and you've seen it. You know how we are when the homies are with the homies. Like we,
Yeah.
we talk a little different. I always say this to my female friends. I'm like, yo, let me tell you something. The nicest homie that you know, the sweetest guy that you know, he's in that circle going, bitches be pa 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 pa. Same dude.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, that's the thing. That's the reality, right? And I'll take you on my own journey, man. And by no stretch am I in a perfect space. I'm also learning and unlearning,
Word.
a lot of things. And like what I realize is right before, like it's almost like an awakening in your mind, the subconscious, like light, like this flick of the light, like you know, and not to minimize it, but like it's the subconscious thing that like that button that goes off and it's like, hey, 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 this thing's happening. Are you awake? What's happening back there? Whether you with the boys or not.
Yeah.
The difference is that I think by every stretch, masculinity is a fragile concept. It's fragile, you know.
100%.
Um, Specifically when it is toxic, you know. And there is good masculinity, there is healthy masculinity,
Mm.
but oftentimes within the circles it's the unhealthy stuff that persists. And the thing is, man, if you are awake to this thing, it's and the emotional labor is tough, but you have to make sure that you're switching everybody else on to be like, hey, this thing is taking place right here with you sitting here, you know this thing is here, like, so there's not this, and what I've realized is when you do say these things in the circle, I've noticed with like my friends and the guys I'm chilling with, they're like, oh, there you go again.
Oh, there
you
you
know
go.
Yeah, it's like, bro, come on, we're just talking shit. And it's just like, dude, but it's that kind of subconscious shit that you speak that ends up becoming a violence tomorrow. That's that is where we are. That is the space where we are at as people who are in love with women, specifically black women. We we owe them so much more than what we're giving.
Mm.
And I don't even want to hear that not all men rubbish ever in this ever.
I used to say that
And
a lot. Nah, I don't. Because I know better. It's not about
you
me.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you need to shut up and amplify
Yeah.
some of the messages when you don't know. You know what I mean? And that's and a lot of, and I think this all these things. I was speaking to a friend of mine today about this thing, about the situation I had, here at home. And she was talking about back in the day, in black culture, men used to have, like, when men do something wrong, they'll sit around the table and men will, be like, what happened here? Like, and hold this person accountable. And, her take was that would help men be, more accountable for their actions. But I was like, actually, no, because the receiver of the violence never gets to hold you accountable, because the people who have the same bad habits is the people that's trying to keep you accountable. It's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
Now you just mind your businesses in the street.
And by the
But
way, speaking of that, there's a lot of inconsistency with the history of how Africans used to do it. Because remember, there was a lot
yep,
of patriarchy. There was in different forms. There was a lot of violence, and there was less equity, I think, in terms of what a woman would do, in terms of versus what men would be able to do in terms of the power. And by the way, just as a little bit of a shot, remember men were in power when we became colonized and enslaved. So it's like,
yeah,
Just by
but
the
you see,
way.
yeah, but you see, that's the thing is that I think our own history as Black people, has very much been in its own way not fully presented in its fullness, in its beauty. I,
100%.
I remember, and I think we had a conversation last year about this essay I read in this book. I think it was called Feminist. I can't remember who wrote the essay, but she was speaking, sort of wrote an essay about her sort of gran who was, sort of inducting guys to become sort of a sangoma, and she spoke a little bit about how English and these things has negatively affected how and the language and the power of language and what that has done to African culture over time.
Mm.
But I sit back today and I think, what if what we know about African culture in its fullness has not been revealed just yet?
I think that's
What
true.
if there is parts where we had it down and we were able to, man? Like, I'm thinking about hunters and gatherers right now.
Mm.
I'm like going way back in my mind, where where the guys go hunting and the ladies, they farming, they're catching the small animals, the rabbits. That's equal hard work, bruh. Everybody has to bring in their part, and in that same way, I'm not saying that it was equal or anything like that, or equitable for women. I'm just saying that I think sometimes in our own African culture has been washed and admired, so that we also think that, this thing, is awful. And maybe it is, but maybe it's not. But we have to open our minds up to the reality. The other thing is, you only as good as what you're exposed to, bro. I've realized that with
That is
time.
true.
And I'm not giving a scapegoat to anyone,
No, no, no.
but if and I hate and I read something earlier today about this lady that was like, don't be mad at your parents for not don't be mad at your parents for killing your dreams. They weren't taught. They never grew up in a time where dreams came to life. But I was so annoyed at that. But at the same time, I thought about it and I was like, you know, like, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You only as good as what you are exposed to, what you are able to see, touch, feel, smell, taste. You Your mind gets opened by experience, by life, and maybe, with the transitions the world has gone through, I think we still stuck in the colonized view of what really African culture is.
We definitely are, and if any of the leaders in any African countries, specifically our government officials, Minister of
Yeah.
Education, um, my biggest dream, you know, not my biggest, one of my biggest dreams in life right now is I really hope we can change the curriculum on history at school from a kindergarten level to high school. I just feel like pure African history, including South African history, but African history, not boy Hitler and co. Is kind of prioritized from grade R or whatever they call it in the most basic of forms, some coloring in books. To I've never seen a coloring in book with Shaka Zulu on, or Queen Nandi. Anyway, from grade from kindergarten all the way to grade 9. Before before kids have to make a choice in grade 10. I know it's difficult because our traditions are very oral, but there's been a lot of development in African history that we can put together. I just feel like they should put money towards that, refining it, and doing that, man. Because if you look at a lot of European countries, right? Like we had a friend from Slovakia who came here for matric or during the matric time. That dude, first of all, he knew his language because that was his first language, and that's what
Yeah.
they speak in Slovakia, or one of the languages they speak in Slovakia. He knew English
Yeah.
because they also taught it as a secondary language. and he's also a diplomat as well, which may have helped. And I can tell you now, he knows his country's history very well. He understands world history significantly well. And even when I was in the States and I did world history as a subject, like South African history was there. It's included. It's very like minimal, and it's obviously during it's from apartheid, beginning of apartheid to upwards. But it was there, so it's kind of like I know they do teach South African history here, but it's kind of like in the eye of the oppressor, or in the lens of the
Yeah.
oppressor, and not in an enlightenment stance, or from the view or perspective of one who's enlightened. And they don't speak about, like, only in the past 3-4 years, maybe a little bit longer. I've been reading books, learning about different African history. From Queen Amina, from Nigeria. I mean, I've only heard of Cleopatra, who, by the way, a lot of the times the North Africans consider themselves to be non-African. So we're learning about the people who
Yeah.
consider themselves not ready to be African. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Then we have queens like Queen Amina from Nigeria, who we don't really learn about. She was a
Yeah.
warrior. She was a lieutenant on the field, also a queen of her region. Not the whole Nigeria, it was a specific region. But she used to kill. She used to kill on the field. She ruled with an iron
Yeah.
fist. And you know what she would actually do? My understanding from what I read was that from the battlefield, she would take prisoners, have coitus, sexual relations with her male prisoner, then cut his head off the next day.
Hey.
Hey, come on, Amina. But my point is, like, those are things they don't teach us from a fundamental level. I mean, why are we not taught about such strong female characters in the fabric of history in Africa? You know what I mean? So for me, I really hope that we can do. I hope that we can build towards that. And I should stop saying we, and I should try actually to look at what I can do, what I can contribute to that. But I just feel like it'll make so much of a difference if from an education basis, if we started to learn our history as South Africans, our history as Africans, then we learn about World War I, II, and blah blah blah. That's just my view, man. I've been feeling that in my heart this year a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, during the Fees Must Fall era, and I call it era because for me it is massively significant in terms of where our country is today and where it was.
Yeah.
Um, we spoke about the decolonization of our education system,
Word.
and that for me was probably the most poignant thing we could have done at that time, around introducing our own history, um, to our kids, bro. Like, it's look, I've seen a few textbooks. I was in high school and I was like, well, where's the stuff about us? We're learning about Winston Churchill just to find out that nigga crazy, that fucked up human being, man. And we learning all about these guys, the Stalins and whatever else in the world,
Who are
but
probably
we're
raping
not
our African queens.
dude, and putting us in little cages, man, for the little kids to look at us like animals and stuff.
Mm.
And I just I cannot believe we just haven't gotten going on that piece of work as South Africans and as Africans.
Mm.
We're in the southern tip of Africa. We needed to get going on this eons ago.
Mm.
We shouldn't. I mean, even if we're looking at our own history as South Africans and what happened in South Africa, man.
Mm.
Sometimes, depending on which perspective you get it from, it's so whitewashed, though.
Mm.
There's so many things that's been taken out and added to make it more acceptable or palatable to sometimes a predominantly white audience, man. It's, for me, how that makes me feel. I just, gets me going, man. It gets me going. So I think it's mighty important, bro. But
super.
I think as a whole, though, sometimes I feel like we were better off without colonialism because I just feel, we might have been better off, man. I don't think we were barbaric in any state or any stretch of the mind. I'm sure we were happy, naked, and thriving.
Hell yeah. I think we were
In Africa,
beautiful, and we were intelligent, and our intellectual capacity was phenomenal. I actually
yeah,
think our colonizers just couldn't actually grasp. It was either they couldn't grasp the high level of IQ that occurred on
yeah,
this beautiful land, or it was just pure jealousy. I mean, or smart. Oh yeah, or greed. I remember reading and it could have been fake news, but it was so believable to me on Facebook a few years ago about Van Riebeck, about who he really was, um, also about what his situation was with his employers, about how he lied about how the people were here. And I was just like, man, that's just pure evil, in form.
yeah,
Because I just feel like what was really happening here, because I mean, the first university was in Africa, and some of the greatest Greek philosophers went to Timbuktu to study. And these are. I mean, I not once in my whole time in, and I know public school kids are the same as well, and private school education, and I've heard no education in South Africa have I ever heard of the universities that were in Timbuktu.
mm,
Not once.
mm,
Not once. And dude, I actually gave my grandmother a book, and I wish I got myself a copy. I bought this book when I was in the States. It spoke about um, the scientists who were in Africa prior to Greek philosophy, and it spoke about all these people who came from Greece to to Timbuktu to study where we were in terms of mathematics. We had mathematics before and astronomy. It was just in a different way. It wasn't in English or
yeah,
Latin, or in Roman numerals. It was in African, whatever it was at the time. It's just that, they couldn't grasp, or it was a thing of, well, pure evil in our hearts, we want more, so we're going to do it. And that's a
yeah,
worldwide
yeah,
phenomenon. That's why you can see so many black people or people of color across the globe. How similar we are, how similar our bringings are, and how similar the struggle is, regardless of where you're from. Last week I had my brother Dwayne, who's from the Bahamas, who's in the States.
yeah,
And he and I have had so many conversations about it, where we're from, how we've been raised. Dude, that guy could have been South African. You
yeah,
know, it's sad.
yeah,
It's so sad where we are.
yeah.
And funny
You know
enough,
what?
no, sorry, continue.
No, sure. Carry on, bro.
I was gonna switch it, so please.
So yeah, man. Like, I think you know what I've really been enjoying lately is black people really coming into their being as people,
Mm,
and embracing what makes you black and beautiful.
word.
When I think about it, I'm thinking about phrases like to be young, black. I think it's black and talented or something like that. I'm not great with phrases, but like, man, just the absolute curiosity that young black people have for themselves, for their people. Man, for me, that is probably the richness, the depth, the luxury, the excellence, the hunger, the extraordinary, man. And it's beautiful to watch, man. It's just
We're blossoming.
so beautiful. Yeah, man.
We're becoming.
Yeah, man.
And it's a
Yeah.
process. I think that there's so much damage, and I think there is a rush because people are becoming more conscious. And if you're conscious that you've been brainwashed for so long, you want to fix it now. But
Yep.
the reality is that this is going to take some time, and it's going to take a collective effort as well. All I think I mentioned in the episode last week. You see the Jewish community, you see the Islamic community, you see the
Yep.
Indian communities, Chinese communities, the Afrikaans, the white communities, the English communities. They stick together. They buy themselves, support each other, understand each other. Not too sure about how clear the history is, because it seems to be that ignorance is bliss around some of these communities. But the reality is that these people, they specialize, they build, they unify, and they grow from within. they're still a part of the
Yeah.
world, but they grow
Yeah.
from within, and that's what we really lack, as a people. But what I was gonna say is, do you know a guy by the name of Dr. Umar Johnson in the States?
Hey, bruh, what? Hey, I have so many things to say. But all right, yeah. What about?
I was having a conversation about him with my cousin and my girlfriend earlier, and what I was gonna say is about Dr. Umar Johnson. I love his vitality, um, and I think the what he's trying to push is the right thing, but I think there's a bit of an issue. So, but where I wanted to bleed into is something that he said. And to be fair, I didn't watch the whole interview when he was talking about it, and I didn't read the whole thing, so there could be context that I'm missing. So no, so now it's Pride Month this month,
Yeah,
and he was speaking around having people who support him, who are in the LGBTQIA plus community. Um, Regardless of what he says. But there's something that he said that kind of like hit me on the side. He was just like, "Yo, man, African culture has never legitimized homosexual behavior or culture," and that took me astray because. Like I feel like in my views, right? I kind of feel like as much as the Greeks, there was a lot of homosexual tendencies and behavior, and people, actually not even tendencies or behavior, people who were in that time. I'm pretty sure it happened here too. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it was a commonality here too. Have you read anything about
100%.
it? What are your thoughts around that, around our history as Africans?
Man, like I don't believe, when people say being, part of the LGBTIQ plus community is an African though. I cannot wrap my mind around that. I am a
Yeah.
100% sure that in within Africa,
Hmm.
right, under the son of God herself,
Hmm.
I don't believe that that could ever exist, man. Like, and I watched a video he made, and since then I've just been blocking it, like the noise, like I can't, yeah, bro. I have, but like I think this thing is very plain and simple in my own mind,
Yeah.
and the truth is when we say all Black lives matter, the all means everybody
Yeah,
that is Black.
they didn't say all straight black.
Yeah, all the straight Black lives. And unfortunately, this freedom from the struggle and the subjugation that we're facing in our different lives,
Hmm.
unfortunately, will never come without inclusive, intersectional thinking in terms of this thing. Like
Hmm.
the LGBT, if LGBTIQ plus, and I'm talking about cisgendered, I'm not just talking about cisgendered members. I'm talking about trans people too.
Hmm.
You know, we will never ever ever be able to move on from here if we do not take everybody on the journey and
100%.
allow everyone to be who they naturally are. And we more than anyone should understand what it means to be really judged on who you are, man. The internal workings of your being, because being Black is not just your skin tone, bruh. It comes with a whole lot of other things, your
Your
ideas,
essence.
your presence. Yeah, it's that thing, bro. That thing. Like, so I just cannot understand how a a a Black man with a platform can say something as wild as that, man. Like, what,
But you know what it
man?
is? Not but, sorry. You know what it is? That's definitely amongst Black Africans. Um, we're fragile. One of the things I
Yeah.
was thinking about as you were speaking is even when I was preparing for our conversation, one of the things that came to my mind was I I can comfortably speak to you, or rather, let me actually say it straight. My behavior showcases that I'm more okay as you being a queer woman, me being more okay with your gayness as a woman versus the gayness of a man.
Yeah.
And in actuality, it shouldn't matter. But our behavior showcases that it does, and it shouldn't. Because I think about the relationships I have with my female gay sisters versus the ones I have with my brothers. The ones I have with my sisters is a whole lot more intricate, you know. And why do you think that is? Is it because you think that we have been, as men, as African men, we have been raised to think that anything associated with women should be weak, and gayness is also weak? What are your thoughts? Why do you think that is?
Man, like I think it's a culmination of many things, coming into one heightened thing. I think men as a whole, when you see a man presenting as feminine, the first thing you do is think weakness,
Yeah.
right? Like he's not displaying, this uber masculine energy. He's not giving that energy. That's the first thing. I think another thing is, I've only like I see this a lot, man. Like it's almost like, no, bro, like you just in case you're trying to force your gayness on me, and it's just like, what do you mean? You don't have self control on yourself. Like what's happening with you on the inside, you
Yeah.
know? And I think it forces like specifically masculine presenting men with this thing. It forces them to realize that their masculinity is not, it's not finite. Well, it is finite, but it isn't this dictionary definition,
Yeah.
of what we taught it is. That masculinity really is, could be anything. It could be soft. You could be soft. You can be giving and still have healthy amounts of masculinity. I
Mm.
don't. I don't. I think we've also been taught that it's acceptable for a woman to love another woman because women are naturally emotional creatures.
Mm.
But and that's what we're taught in our mind. And then we are fronted with this idea that two men are conquering each other. Like, how did that happen? You know, and like for me, in my own opinion, and it really just is my opinion. I just believe that we have been taught that it is wholly unacceptable for a man to, number one, be soft for
Mm.
another man. Number two, be fragile,
Mm-hmm.
be feminine, be open, be emotional, be plugged in. And when we do see it, we all are a little bit like, hey, what the hell's happening here?
Mm.
You know? But but in my own mind, I just feel that we've been taught that it's just not, and that's what I'm saying. It's like a culmination of a myriad of very wild things. But when it comes to patriarchy, masculinity, it's always the basis for these things. Whether
Mm.
especially when it comes to homophobia, and we must call it for what it is.
So maybe what you can recommend, because I say to my partner, like I said to when I raise my kids, and first of all, one thing I need to remove from my mentality is it's too late for me, my kids. So that's the thing that I'm actively working on to try rid of, because it's dangerous. Because it means that if you're toxic now, you're saying that for the rest of your life, you're going to remain toxic and hope that the next generation is going to be better. It doesn't work like that. But
Yeah.
I still say to my partner, like, when we have kids, at some point, I'm going to take not just myself, my partner should as well. And not give attention to our daughters, but I feel like I need to give special attention to our men, because as much as our women do need protecting, our men need re-education, or a different form of learning. Because if you can teach, the tricky thing about kids is that you can do everything in the world for your children, but the world can still fuck them up. You know,
Yep.
so I am worried about my future daughters, but I'm actually very worried about my future sons. So one of the things I've said to my partner is like one of the things I want to make sure that I do a lot with my with both my kids, but I emphasize with my future sons is that we have an open communication about what are you feeling, what is bothering you, how do you feel, not how other people are making you feel, but how do you feel. So what are some of the things you think we can do better for the next generation? Whether it's your own kids, whether it's your nieces, nephews, what are some of the things from a learning perspective that you think we can do a little bit better?
Yeah. For me, I truly believe normalize being soft, man. Normalize being soft, being able to receive and give love purely. I think that's the gateway for many things,
Mm,
right? And specifically when we look at young men, um, you sometimes you are a reflection of what you see,
mm,
right? So you love a certain way, right? You love a certain way because that's how you see it. It happened, you know. And then when you learn, you grow better. And I hope we're all doing that. But that's the reality, right? The thing is, we you, for me, that one day, I'm looking at my own future kids, and I want to know, like, I want my son specifically to be soft. I want him to be have a good understanding, and that's the thing is you gotta allow your kids around people who know.
mm.
Like if you're gonna expose your kids to someone who's hyper masculine, aggressive, you know, who's out there being, has masculinity, patriarchy issues, that's exactly what you're gonna get back. Because that's what I'm saying. You are literally a reflection of what you see. Um, until you can grow and know better, you know.
Mm.
And that's the thing. Kids take photographs of things in life. Like their mind is like a photograph, man.
Oh
They
yeah.
take, and then later on in life, they process those pictures and they become those pictures.
Mm,
Another thing for me is you have to educate your kids, man. And the best way to educate your kids is to give them something to look up to respect, to understand, something to strive towards. Right, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I was like, how few black queer couples I see that have healthy, loving relationships. Man. Sometimes for me, it breaks my heart, man. That I don't see it enough. I don't
mm.
see black enough. I don't see it being played out enough. I'm not able to taste it enough. Like, but when I do, man, it changes every perspective I have of the world around me. It changes how I love. It changes how I project my love, what love means to me, how I wrap it up in a bow for myself because I've been able to redefine it to something that looks like. And another thing, man, is never stop speaking to your kids. Never
Yeah.
stop. Even the tough stuff, especially the tough stuff. Get in there, man. You know, get in there. For a while, my mom actually said it, quite a few years ago. Like, when you have a kid, the beginning is you grooming this child, you're loving the child, you're feeding the child, and then as time goes on, you become the disciplinarian, the mentor, the person that's sort of guiding the journey, and then it sort of tapers off into, oh, there's a there's a likeness, we can be friends, and then you become friends, you know and that's her journey, I guess, of parenthood, how she saw it.
Mm,
But what I took from that is it's an endless working on what this thing could be.
mm.
You have to be plowing constantly and use the teachable moments. Man, let me tell you, there's many parents that miss the teachable moments because you're too wrapped up in the situation, you know. But if you are awake to it, if you are awake, you will catch the teachable moment right there. Right
Yeah.
there where you see the patriarchy forming. When you see that it's in the ground, that right there is the moment where you're able to deal with it, right there in that moment. You're able to really take it and remove it. When you see that there's a toxicness about the being, like, you could deal with that. And I will say till I die, guys, your male friends, your male kids, get them to do chores around the house. Teach them to be independent. Teach them to be able to do things for themselves. Man, I've seen it personally in my own family, where the guys are sort of like, the hands, you just can't work these things, man. It's just like, woo, they can't do the dishes. And then, then you go out in the world expecting your person to be your mother, and then things fall apart because the world has changed, man. Women are, yes, women might, there's a lot of inequalities that we are still facing, but women do have their own job. And just the absolute relief men would have if they let go of all these wild patriarchal ideas, they'll truly be able to taste, in my own opinion, the value of love. And I can say it from my own space, as a masculine presenting woman, where I too have many seeds of patriarchy and masculinity in me that has attracted itself over time. But there's nothing more freeing than to be able to relate to your partner in a healthy, loving, respectable way. It is, man. You can't. There's not a amount of money that can equate that. And imagine, just loving so freely, without feeling like you have to perform something, whether it be masculinity or whatever it is. Imagine just loving so beautifully. It's a dream. It's something that for me, I strive to have, and I'll say it right out from the bat. I have many seeds, many seeds, and when you're in a relationship, man, if you switched onto it, you're able to see it play out in front of your eyes. Sometimes you're blind to it, but that's why you need someone that's going to hold you accountable and be teachable, man.
Yeah.
So important to remind your kids, remain teachable. Don't be hard. Don't become hard.
But I think that's important in relationships, I think, because there was at work, they had some, like, an informational session where this other, I think he was if he wasn't a neurosurgeon, he was a specialist close to that. He works with the neural network. So he was talking about raising kids. I wasn't there, so also this is like information I got from other people. So this doctor basically told the people that at work that the thing with kids, excuse me, is that what parents get wrong with kids is that parents will always be like, oh, I'm gonna do the best for my child, everything for the child, and they kind of ignore their partners. And ignore is the wrong word, but the same level of energy is not given towards their partner. It's like this: we're doing everything for the child. But he was saying that where the error is that kids pick up on behavior. Like you said, they chew on everything. They observe with the microscope. So if we're married, I'm treating you like shit, but I'm doing everything for our daughter, she's gonna be like, oh wow, it's acceptable for a man to treat a woman like shit because daddy did so to mommy. And that's what she picks up. She doesn't pick up, and she picks up, and if you do that, you can still spoil other women. Those are the things that they pick up. They also pick up how you as partners, you as parents treat each other. So that whole thing about being teachable, I think what's awesome about that concept is, and it's a bilateral concept of where you should be able to hold your partner accountable even in front of your kids. Because for me, what that showcases, bear in mind, I'm not a parent. I haven't studied anything around it, so I could be wrong. But my belief is that your kids also need to understand that you're not perfect, but you're trying to be the best you can be for yourself, for the person, for the partner, for the kid, for the household, and everybody's reciprocating that kind of love, energy, and effort. I always say that you have to be teachable in a relationship. And the thing is, I've always regarded relationships, marriage, raising a family to be one of the hardest things on earth. Not because it isn't rewarding, and it's probably one of the most rewarding things on earth. But for me, it's one of those things where, because it's that valuable, that important, bro, it's a thing where you got to keep the machine rolling. You can't sleep for the whole week, and then next week you're like, okay, I'm back. Nah, Monday to Monday, the relationship is on. Monday to Monday, being a parent, you're on. You always gotta be on. You're gonna have bad days, but that's when it comes to, like, your partner understanding you. And if they're not understanding what's happening, teachable moments, communication, understanding that. Not this picture
Yeah.
perfect thing that we're taught as kids. Oh, this is what happens in the movies. This is how marriages are. This is the perfect family with the white picket fence. Because first of all, the
100%.
people who made those things are racist. And anyway, to the side. But like, we have to be able to be vulnerable, patient, loving, and reciprocal. It's all about the behavior. I get that wrong a lot. I'm preaching, but I get that wrong a lot from my side. I don't show love enough, and that's what I'm currently working on in my personal development. I'm learning. I'm trying to get out of this space of, I have this whole universe, this narrow universe. I live in it. I was raised in it. This little world of mine, and the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that, nobody else lives in that space. That's just mine. There's like identical planets, but nobody's on my world. And that's where you have to compromise, learn, be patient, be able to give the love that the person's giving back to you, understand your partner's love language. And let me tell you, that took me a long time to even start to grasp. I ain't gonna lie to you. A long ass
But like,
time.
when we go back to kids, and having kids, right? Or choosing to be a partner and a parent to a child, right?
Mm.
Dude, like, I think we've become accustomed to believing that kids can't see conflict. You know, we become accustomed to saying kids can't see the conflict, and I'm not saying please get at each other in front of your kids. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, dude, if you say to your kids, me and mommy had a bit of an argument. We're having a bit of a timeout right now, but let's go for ice cream. Let's go for something, right? Kids, yes, they do get anxious, man. But kids are also smart, intuitive human beings, creatures. They get it, though.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
And look, I by no stretch know what it is to raise human beings into adults. But in my mind, it's important for me to be, during this journey of being a parent, to give you tools in your toolbox so that by the time you do become an adult, I've given you as much as I could possibly give you in your toolbox that you can refine into creating space for yourself. And we have so many things that we try and shy away from teaching kids, but the reality is, and we have to open our our minds to the understanding that they are very smart creatures, man. And they are
They're
adaptable.
natural scientists, explorers.
Exactly.
And maybe just in closing off, because we're about to wrap up here, like, what would you want to say to fellow South Africans, to fellow human beings, like, right now, off the top of your head, off the cusp, like, what's one thing you're just hoping people can do better, or the message you want to kind of share to everybody?
Yeah. Man, I think my message right now is be curious, live through your growth, understand that life, the only thing that's constant is change. You have to adapt, you have to evolve, you have to become fit, stand your ground, love yourself above everything else,
Mm,
and the rest will follow. But be curious about yourself. Be
mm,
curious. Keep checking, keep learning, keep going there. Especially those hard places. Go there. But be curious enough, you know. Never think that being curious about yourself is an affront to anyone.
And the reality is that that's where the magic actually lies.
100%. 100%. 100%. 100%.
Cool, Nikits. Thanks a lot for a beautiful hour of your truth. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, I always say that like some of these conversations people need to hear a bit more, even if it's just one person in the universe. One person at a time, 1 second at a time, 1 day at a time. Yeah, and thank you for taking the time just to be here to have this conversation with me.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me. It's always lovely catching up with you, man. This is an amazing, amazing platform. I'm so excited for you, boy. Like, yay. You know, I was telling my mom, hey, I'm so excited for this guy. Like, you've been talking about this for a while. So, I'm rooting for you all the way. But thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your space and time with me, your energy. So important.
Aware. And there will be new music and stuff coming, so I'll let you know about that.
Hey!
That's right. All right, much love. Everybody at home, thank you so much for your time. And stay safe, be vigilant. Ignorance is bliss. Why do we have to live in bliss when we're all ignorant? Let's get the hell out of there. Much love. We'll see you next week for the 3rd episode. Much love, everybody. Peace.
Thanks, guys.